welcome to Combat Thoughts. I'm Robbie.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Alex.
We're going to take a deeper look at the culture and philosophy behind martial arts.
Welcome to another installment of the Polaris 17 athlete interviews. Today I am joined by Ben Hills. Ben, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, mate.
No worries. So from what I understand, this upcoming Polaris event is actually, is it your debut for Polaris?
It is, yeah. It's my Polaris debut. Something I've been kind of looking for and hoping for a while now. So hoping to go out there and make a bit of an impact.
Awesome. I mean, it's not as if, you know, you're a sort of fresh person on the circuit, because you're a Grapple Fest veteran, and you've been in some of the big competitions. Just, I guess, not Polaris, but it's cool that you're getting the opportunity. So how did the match come about? Did you get approached by Polaris? How did that dynamic work?
Sure. So it tends to be, I mean, usually I trust all the matchmaking and everything down to my coach. So, Paul kind of sends me the link and just says, you know, this is who they're thinking. What are your thoughts? And, you know, it's never going to be a no. Let's have it right. If someone's going to offer me a match, then I'll take it. Particularly if it's someone like Polaris, I'm never ever going to turn down a match when it comes there. So, you know, it's one of those that it came through, and obviously I'm super pumped and super excited to get the call up. And yeah, it'd be a really exciting night of fights. There's some incredible fights on the card as well. So I'm looking forward to A, getting out there, and then B, also watching the other guys compete as well.
Yeah, it's a very cool venue as well. I was there for the last Polaris squads. I think it's the same venue. Very cool. It has like an arena effect. It's small and kind of intimate, so I think you will also be able to feed off the crowd quite a bit.
Sure.
But you've done super fights before, right? Have you done this sort of format before, where it's like all eyes on like one person, or has it been more? Have you had more experience with like a, you know, longer mat and a lot of mats and so on?
No, I've done both. I've been in this game a long time, so. Since, you know, in the last few years in particular, where the sub-only format's kind of taken precedent, I think I've done much more of that format. So I'm actually more, I wouldn't say more comfortable, but I'm certainly more experienced in this format than I am in, kind of say, a tournament-based format. But, you know, I've got plenty of experience in both. But I think the sub-only format, where it's kind of one fight, one match on one mat, where everyone's watching and streamed, is kind of where I feel probably most comfortable. So yeah, no, it's nothing. It was definitely not
anything
new
that
I've been in before. Yeah,
sure. What do you think of your opponent? What were your thoughts when you first got given the match, where you're like, fuck yeah, I want to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always am. I'm always pumped for good matches, and Shane's someone I've known a long time, and I know Shane very well. You know, we're actually really good friends.
Awesome.
You know, we've trained together, we've worked together, we know exactly what it is. But, you know, this is a match. This is a big match on a big stage. So the jiu-jitsu community is very different to the MMA community, I think, and I think everyone kind of is starting to learn now that we're all mostly friends. You know, we all know each other, but we'll still compete. But, you know, obviously very excited and very grateful for Shane for taking the match anyway. So it'll be a good match. He's a dangerous kid. He's a dangerous guy. He knows what he's doing, but so am I. So I'm looking forward to getting there.
So you say you've trained before, right? Have you trained a lot, or has it just been sort of sporadic every so often?
We've trained a bit. You know, I've been down to his gym a couple of times. He's been up to mine. We know each other. You know, we've kind of, I fought him when I was I've actually competed against him when I was a purple belt. So we've been there. It was a long time ago, and obviously everything's changed in both of our games since then. But, you know, it's not a guy that I don't know. I know him very well. I know his style. I know who he is. Obviously, he's been training with Lloyd Cooper a lot recently, so I'm also quite aware of his style as well. So I know there's going to be some new things in his game, which I'm quite excited to kind of test myself against. But, you know, never take anybody lightly in this game. I don't think, especially at this level. You certainly have to do your homework and you have to be prepared.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I know that I've personally seen Shane in some of the full reptile videos, because I think he's been traveling down to work with Dan Hardy and those guys. I'm not sure if he's going to do an MMA, switching to MMA or something. Not sure if you know much about that. If, would you ever consider that? Would you ever consider going to MMA?
So I always did the opposite. I kind of came from an MMA. Like I started my career. I started my jiu-jitsu kind of journey in MMA and doing Thai boxing, and my kind of predominant focus was stand up. You know, I was a striker. I used to really love Thai, and I was in that world. And I did a few MMA fights, and when I was young, really young, and then I took a bit of time out. During the bracket, which I won't bore everyone with again, but I've told the story a few times. I took a little bit of time out for uni and jobs and all the rest of it, and then as I came back into the sport, it was more like just jiu-jitsu. All I focused on was jiu-jitsu, and my entire life became jiu-jitsu. So I can't see myself going back personally to MMA. I enjoy jiu-jitsu far too much, and I'm a bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd anyway, and all the CBT that comes and all that kind of stuff that comes with getting head kicks is not a bit of me. Not at this age.
Yeah, I think myself, I've also come from like a more Muay Thai background. Although I'm a pretty like new person to jiu-jitsu. Some of the other guys in Combat Thoughts team, they're a bit more advanced than me. One of them is a purple belt. So but we have the same sort of idea, and I think a lot of people that switch from striking to jiu-jitsu do it a lot of it because of the head impacts that you get from doing those sports. But I guess, would you attest that there's also, there are other injuries that you can get from jiu-jitsu?
Definitely. I think you're always going to get injuries in any combat sport, and I think jiu-jitsu is no different. I mean, I'll defy anybody to give any black belt and tell any black belt that's not injured. So every black belt's got some sort of injury that they carry with them, and they always will carry with them, and it never goes away. But that's just part of the sport. You've got to ride it while you can. I think it's just a case of managing that injury until you kind of cease to train, I think.
Sure. So so you say you basically, now jiu-jitsu is basically your life now. Is that essentially what you're doing, is just teaching, or you still have some work on the side and also alongside that doing teaching and competing?
Sure, yeah. It's very much. I mean, I'm sure my missus will attest to this as well. It's very much 2 full-time jobs back to back. So I still have my job to pay the mortgage and pay the bills, which is, everybody's got. So you've got to have that, which is, it's a great job. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. So that keeps me entertained. But my love and my passion is in jiu-jitsu. I train as much as I can, and as often as I can, as generally training 2-3 times a day, wherever possible. But it's it's one of those that you've got to put the time in when you're at this level. If you want to get anywhere, you've really got to commit to it. And strength and conditioning on top of all that as well, and recovery, and it's an expensive sport to be good at. But yeah, no, it's certainly over the last couple of years I've taken it up a level, and taken it up a level into more of a professional environment. And if I want to compete with guys that are doing this literally full time professionally, then I've got to start stepping up, and I've got to start shaping up to become as much a full time athlete as they are.
Sure.
So that's just the way it is.
And is that the goal then for you, is to try and get to those highest levels of competition, sort of like maybe ADCC? I know you did you compete at the recent ADCC? Yeah, you did, right? So obviously you're interested in those sort of circuits. So is that sort of your goal now, is to compete at the highest level?
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's just to prove myself in that black belt category, I think, is more than anything. So, I want to compete with the highest guys. I want to compete with the best guys that I can in that category. And I want to show that I'm capable, and show that I'm willing to, put it all on the line to win. But, when you get to, as I say, when you get to a certain level, it's basically a skill-based game, but you've just got to be, it's who makes the mistake on the night, and you just got to be more prepared than the other guy, really. I think is the basics of it all. But at a black belt level, I just want to prove myself and try and become the best in the world if I can. Push myself as far as I can possibly go, and just start taking out big names is the overall goal.
Well, I think Shane is a good way to do that. I think he's a good opponent, for sure. And so, as maybe a sort of selfish question, where I find myself struggling to balance, for example, like strength training, jiu-jitsu, and then work. But I want to, if I could, I would do jiu-jitsu only, like because I guess it's like this bug that bites everyone in jiu-jitsu, where you get so into it, you're thinking about moves when you're in bed, like your girlfriend's asking like, oh, what are you thinking about? It's like, nothing, babe. Just thinking of moves. But how are you finding it? Like, how are you training? How do you structure your training?
So I brought on a strength and conditioning coach probably about a year ago now. He's called Graham Long. He's in Liverpool. He's fantastic. But I brought him on specifically to plan my training, to plan my strength and conditioning training. So a lot of my training, I used to just train kind of ad hoc and lift every other day or lift every day and train here and there and do everything else. But now my training's a lot more structured and planned. So I think planning and structure and having blocks where you train, where you work, where you know where you're going to be and what you're going to do is quite important. So like I like to train, I like to lift or do cardio in the mornings if I can. And then obviously I do my work and whatever I need. So I'm very lucky that in my work I'm quite flexible. So I can work from home and I can be flexible. I can go out for a run if I need to, or I can stretch if I need to and do whatever I need to go. And then obviously train in the evenings or even, add an extra jiu-jitsu session at lunchtime or in the morning. But I think it's just about being more structured. I think is essentially the best advice I can give you. I mean, to sound really cliche, it's literally just that, where train strength and conditioning. I would say strength and conditioning 2-3 times a week is more than enough. For jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, especially when you get up to kind of brown belt, it's all about just pure technique. You just got to get good at technique. You just got to learn the position, learn the technique, learn a certain basis of moves. Just know from each position what you're going to do from that position. So say if it's half guard, you're going to wrestle up, you're going to do X, Y, Z. I know I'm going to go for a electric chair sweep. I know what I'm doing from that position, and then adapting that to the rest of your game. Whereas I think when you get to competing at sub only stuff, it's less about technique, because everyone knows the same technique. It's more about fitter, stronger, and then making your IQ in jiu-jitsu higher. So developing a strategy for when you're attacking a certain opponent and the certain body shape and size and strength and all the rest of it, and then you learn how to adapt your techniques to that environment. If that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's good advice, I think, as well. It makes sense that if you have a structured approach, you're less likely to fail. But are you sometimes, for example, like doing lifts in the morning and then training in the afternoon? Are you like sometimes double booking yourself in that respect? Are you doing that, or do you tend to separate?
No, I mean both really. So a lot of our sessions, in particular, our comp team sessions are kind of a bit of both, a good bit of fitness and also your technique and aggression in jiu-jitsu. And that's one of the big things that's changed for me in the past kind of couple of months, is that just sheer aggression in jiu-jitsu has got to be there. So it's just all about cardio and fitness. But in reality, if you can separate the sessions, the better. But it's all about recovery at the same time as well. You've got to remember that you can't just keep beating your body down. And everyone thinks that more is better, when in reality it's not necessarily the case. You've got to add some recovery in there. I brought on a kind of a sports therapist. He's called himself, but he's one of the best I've ever worked with, I've ever been with. He's called Cy Squires. He's fantastic. So he does a lot of my recovery and a lot of my massage stuff and the things that I need just to continue going on the path that I'm going at. Which is obviously some people can recover quicker than others for various reasons, which we won't go into. But when you're not dabbling in that environment, I think it's very, very difficult to recover quickly, and you've got to take every advantage you can. Whether that's salt baths or stretching every night, and really being ruthless with it and routine with it. Whether it's going to bed an hour later or getting up an hour earlier just to stretch, I think you've got to be that disciplined. Otherwise, you're absolutely doomed at this level.
I mean, you say at this level, but I actually think there aren't many people doing what you're doing at that level. It sounds very professional. I'll put it that way. It's yeah. I think a lot of people underestimate all these, like the value of, for example, having a sports therapist. Because even for like an amateur like myself, I when you're rolling and stuff, you always get in sometimes in awkward positions and stuff, and you get a slight your muscles get overstretched slightly in this direction or whatever, and you just get tightness, and it just accumulates. So do you see them like once a week or something, or even more often?
I try and see as much as I can, but not so much recently. For my sins, I've been seeing him so much recently, but I do a lot of my own stretching, a lot of my own. I've got Theragun and a few other bits that I do a lot of the recovery on my own. But when I need to see them, I go and see him. When something's really bad, I go and see him. Generally, he tends to fix things very quickly. So he gets down to the cause of the problem and then fixes it, which is great. So, touch wood, I haven't been injured badly enough for a while. So, just keeping on top of it now.
Yeah, and what about intensity of rolls when you're sparring, when you're rolling? Do you modulate your intensity, or is it like sort of Daisy Fresh where they just go fucking all out all the time?
I think there's a benefit to both kind of fields and both arguments, but my personal way of doing it, everyone's different. Andrew Wilsey, he has loads of benefits from training really hard all the time, but I guarantee he doesn't train really hard all the time. That's when the cameras are on it, and he says, "Oh, we train hard every day and we smash it." Like you can't visibly do that. There'll be certain days where he just goes, "You know what? I'm just going to drill. We're going to drill. We're going to train, but we're not going to train as hard as we did when we trained in competition session." And he probably trains harder than anybody in terms of like the sheer intensity of the rolling. But there's also got to be a time where you take a bit of time just to recover and get over certain injuries and whatever else. And for me, I try and modulate both. So I do a lot of positional sparring when if I'm tired or if I'm injured or if I'm sore. What I'll do is I'll do more positional based stuff. So I'll start rolling, and then I'll put myself in position. So I'll put myself in a leg entanglement. I'll put myself to put someone into mount on me. I'll let someone take my back so I can escape it. And then I'll just keep doing that over and over and over again at a fairly low intensity. But generally, if I'm going for a low intensity day, I'll either pick really high level guys or I'll pick really low level guys, because it's the guys in the middle that tend to be the dangerous ones that I've got a bit of an ego and I want to prove a point. Don't get me wrong, if someone wants to roll hard, I'll match the intensity and then go above and beyond. If someone starts rolling hard, I'll beat your intensity, and that's just the way it is. No, I've got no ego, but I'm certainly not getting battered and injured by someone that's just got an ego roll. But it's one of those. I roll with my missus a lot, and she's a phenomenal blue belt. She's really, really good at what she does. But rolling with her is actually it's a really technical and interesting roll. So if I'm injured or sore, that's where I'll go.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
it's just plan it out. Yeah, you just got to plan it out. You can't roll hard.
Yeah, I guess to speak to what you're talking about with your rolling with your girlfriend, I guess it's nice to have someone that you have that relationship with, because you can really, then there's no, I guess you shouldn't feel bad about telling someone like chill out a bit or something, but at the same time, if you have that relationship, then you really can have that conversation.
Yeah.
But so what would you say? So we have the Polaris event now, all going well. What is the sort of outlook for the next year or so for you?
So there's a few things coming up. There's a match that I can't announce yet, but I can talk about, because it hasn't actually been released yet. But I'll be on the Grapple Fest card in November, which it's a brilliant opponent as well. So obviously, as soon as that gets announced, I'll be all over it on social media and the rest of it. But until then, I'm not going to kind of ruin their thunder on that. But it's a really good match. It's a great promotion that I've been on a lot. I've been on almost all of their shows, and I know Tomo really well. It is a brilliant card. So I'm excited to get back onto that. Plenty coming up as well. Obviously, going looking to do the next trials in Moldova as well. Have a bit of fun with ADCC trials. Realistically, the plan for me in the next year is to get more mat time in kind of Worlds, Euros, and Pans. And you know, I've focused a lot on my sub only side of things for the last year or so. And realistically, I want to go back to my roots and go back to tournament format jiu-jitsu at the same time. I still want to do super fights. Yeah, I still want to do super fights, but I want to do gi and no gi, Pans, Euros, and Worlds. I want to delve into that world a bit more and get more tournament format exposure. Whereas obviously wind down a little bit on the sub-only format and just keep it to the bigger shows is kind of what I'm looking at for the next year, potentially as a plan. But we'll see where the next year takes me, to be fair. But that's, you know, I just wing it, to be honest. I just kind of, whatever comes up, and then I just go with that. I'm gutted to not be at Worlds this weekend, obviously, but Polaris kind of takes precedent on that. So
yeah, makes sense. That's good. Sounds great, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to seeing how you do. Looking forward to the announcement of the Grapple Fest as well, for sure. It's a great event.
It's brilliant.
But so towards the sort of end of the interviews, I chuck in some rapid fire questions just for a bit of fun at the end of the interview. So I have four to five questions. We'll just have a bit of fun. So first question, gi or no gi?
No gi.
No gi. Okay, good. But you said you do want to compete in gi as well.
Yeah, no, I still enjoy the gi. I really enjoy the gi. I love training the gi. I love fighting the gi, but I like no gi a lot.
Yeah, that's good. What are your top 3 favorite films and or books?
Top 3 favorite films. So one is Tears of the Sun. Which is a Bruce Willis film, which is based on the Vietnam War. It's absolutely incredible if you haven't seen it. I really like Deadpool, weirdly enough, just because it's a bit of comedic relief and it's great. And then Deja Vu is a fantastic one as well. A great film. So there's a few of them, but you know, I've got plenty of those films that I really, really like. But you know, it's quite hard to pick 3 that I would just say are those 3 and that's it. But I would say those three are fantastic.
Nice. Who's your favorite athlete of all time? Doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu.
Favorite athlete of all time? That's a very good question. It very much depends. This is another one. It very much depends on kind of what you consider in terms of an inspiration. Someone like Marcelo Garcia or Roger Gracie are probably my 2 favorites in that respect, because of what they've done for the sport, but also the fact that they are 2 idols of mine, in that Roger is the best gi athlete that's ever lived. Marcelo is arguably the best no gi athlete that's ever lived as well. So, you know, those 2 guys are fantastic. In terms of just athlete, I think I would probably stick with them. But someone like a GSP, if you're delving into any of the combat sports, is just a phenomenal athlete as well. You know, he's done so much for the sport, and the way he developed his style over the years is just phenomenal.
So another question. What are you most scared of?
So I think you know, as you referenced earlier, it's a bit about heights. You know, I don't particularly like heights in that respect. I don't mind. It's not necessarily being high that's the problem. It's the fear of kind of falling is the issue. So I'm quite lucky that jiu-jitsu is on the ground, so I don't ever have to worry about that when it comes to sport. So it's that's why I picked jiu-jitsu, because it's about as close to the ground as you can possibly get. So you know.
Yeah, fair enough. And then, so my last question is, what, dead or alive, who would you most like to meet?
Oh, dead or alive, that's a great question. Oh, that's a fantastic question. Off the top of my head, I don't even know. That's a mental one. Don't know. Probably someone like Helio. Someone like that would be a fantastic one, just to pick the brains of someone like that could, you know, you can, the amount of knowledge that must be in there and the stories that you've got. You know, I was very lucky to meet John Will at one point, where he's part of obviously the Dirty Dozen, where you know, the conversations that he's got, the stories about Chuck Norris and everything that he's got in the tank is incredible. So to speak to someone that's even more senior than he is would just be insane. So that's probably where I would say I would probably look to meet him.
I think someone else, I can't remember who we were interviewing, but someone else also said Helio. So I think that would be a great one.
Yeah, definitely that.
Well, look, man, thank you very much for coming on and spending the time.
Thank you, mate. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. We would love to have you on the podcast, on a separate podcast, just like talk about you as a martial artist. And yeah, good, all the best in your match at Polaris and the rest.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, we'll chat soon.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, man.
Brilliant. Thank you.